A reading from the first letter of St. Peter. Beloved, do not be surprised that a trial by fire is occurring among you, as if something strange were happening to you. But rejoice to the extent that you share in the sufferings of Christ, so that when his glory is revealed, you may also rejoice exultantly. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, blessed are you, for the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. But let no one among you be made to suffer as a murderer, a thief, an evildoer, or as an intriguer. But whoever is made to suffer as a Christian should not be ashamed, but glorify God because of his name. For it is time for the judgment to begin with the household of God. If it begins with us, how will it end for those who fail to obey the gospel of God? And if the righteous one is barely saved, where will the godless and the sinner appear? As a result, those who suffer in accord with God's will hand their souls over to a faithful Creator as they do good. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. When the Lord brought back the captives of Zion, we were like men dreaming. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with rejoicing. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad indeed. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the torrents in the southern desert. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing. Although they go forth weeping, carrying the seed to be sown, they shall come back rejoicing, carrying their sheaves. Those who sow in tears shall reap rejoicing.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the 12, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace upon the earth. I have come to bring not peace, but the sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's enemies will be those in his household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus. Good morning. Just great readings today, huh? So much fun. Well, we're looking at two amazing saints who were martyrs, who stood up for the truth, who stood up for what they believed in. And of course, we're talking about the Reformation, when everyone was saying that the Catholic Church was corrupt and should be thrown away, and let's do our own thing. And you know the basic stories there of the Protestant Reformation. But St. John Fisher and St. Thomas More were two men who exemplified something that was pretty powerful, and that was they did what they knew was right regardless. Regardless of consequences, regardless of what people would think, regardless of the judgments, regardless of the power that was coming against them. They did what was right. And that is maybe something we as Christians today need to hold on to, considering the circumstances of our own lives and considering the darkness that is now coming against us, that we need to take stock in what these two men exemplified in their lives. And we need to embrace it, and I pray that we could all live it. When we look at the first reading from St. Peter, he gives an exhortation and encouraging us in this time, this dark time. One of the statements he says is, "But let no one among you be made to suffer as a murderer, a thief, an evildoer, or an intriguer. But whoever is made to suffer as a Christian should not be ashamed, but glorified because of the name. Glorify God because of the name. For it is time for the judgment to begin within the house of God." Wow. And let it begin with us. And he goes on and describes, well, if the judgment comes, and we who hold on to the truth and profess the truth of Jesus Christ out into the world, imagine what it'll be like for those who profess to believe but really don't live it out, who say they believe in Jesus but remain silent. So Peter is exhorting us to hold on to the truth, to the baptism with which we have received. And then, of course, Jesus comes and he speaks to the apostles and says, let's be clear. The road I'm asking you to go down is not a road that's going to be easy. It's going to be a difficult road. It's going to be a challenging road. It's not so that you're going to experience peace. I think a lot of times we look at the church from a hedonistic perspective that the world culture looks at. God is a God of hedonism, so he's going to stop all the pain. He's going to make everything nice and copacetic, and it's just going to be a nice, clean, plastic Christianity. And I think we're moving into a time when Christianity is no longer going to be clean and plastic. It's going to be messy. It is messy. We experience it within our own ranks. There's a division of dissension amongst us, seeking to pit people against each other. Certainly evident in the culture, politically, but it's also within our own pews. Do we come to church and immediately judge people because they wear a mask or don't wear a mask? It's easy to do. And so what are we called to do? Jesus says, those who seek to save their lives find it, will lose it. And he's referring to our baptism. Because in our baptism, we're called to give ourselves away. We're called to say that when I enter the waters of the font, that even though my life is physically alive still, I have chosen to die in those waters. I've chosen to unite my death with Jesus' death, so that when he rises, I rise. Which means that I now call, as St. Paul says, I consider my life forfeit in comparison to knowing Christ. My life is over. It is no longer the life that I live, but it is Christ who lives in me because he died for me. And Paul takes that whole example of baptism. In fact, after his conversion experience, the first thing he requests is baptism. Well, why is that if he already had been hanging out with the Holy Spirit for 3 days? Because he knew it was time to die. And so do we see ourselves as Christians who are holding on to this little bit of life here on earth, hoping that we can bring things back to normal, that it's not crazy anymore? Or Are we Christians who have said, my life is united with Christ and it is forfeit and it is no longer my own, and the life that I live is now the life that I live for Jesus? That's what St. Thomas More did, St. John Fisher. They held on to the truth of Christ and said, I believe that his word is so true that if you push me to this point and you want me to bend my will and say no, that all these things that you now are saying are right and true, then I'll yield to that. Then no, I can't. Why? Because the truth is we are one. I brought the book up because in the collect that Father read, at the very end, a lot of times we hear these readings, these prayers, and we kind of forget all the different, the meat that's in these individual little prayers. O God, who in martyrdom have brought true faith to its highest expression, graciously grant that, strengthened through the intercession of Saints John Fisher and Thomas More, we may conform by the witness of our life the faith we profess with our lips. May we confirm by the witness of our life the faith we profess with our lips. If we who profess to believe in Jesus Christ will not stand up and live a life that is worthy of the truth that he came to die for, then who's going to do it? Who's going to do it if it's not us? Isn't that what Peter was saying? And let that testing and purification of the church begin in us first. Because people need to know, and I tell you, there's people out there who are in our pews who are not committed, and they're looking to you and I who are here today, and they want to see what you are going to do, what you are going to say, and how you are going to live. And depending on what you model will determine on how they will follow. And that's what people are looking for. They want to know what is true, what is right, what is good, even in the face of tremendous fear and potential suffering and rejection and all the rest. And we have two great martyrs today that we look to because they give us great hope. Why? Because we believe that they have risen with Christ. We believe that their death wasn't in vain. We believe that they did the ultimate test and they held on to Jesus because they believe that he is the Son of God, because they believe that he did die, and they believe that he rose on the third day. They believe that it's so true that they were willing to give up their lives because that is truth. Regardless of what the world says, regardless of what the world is doing, they believe that Jesus did what he said he was going to do. That is what we hold on to. That is what we keep our eyes focused on. It is the hope of what Jesus has already won for us, if we might just hold on to him. Oh, come, Holy Spirit. Strengthen our spirits within us, that we might this day reaffirm our commitment in baptism to give everything we have and everything we are to you.